Hey everybody, so what we're looking at today is a playthrough that I did for a game called Fractured Lands. Now I've talked about this game a couple of times. It is a Battle Royale style game, which I don't play any of those. I have not played Player Unknown Battlegrounds or Fortnite or whatever other ones there are. I know there's a whole bunch. I have never played any of them. They have never as a genre been that interesting to me. This one I figured I'd give a try because it's mixing two things that I actually like quite a bit, which is first-person shooting and third-person car combat. Now, I'm a big fan of Twisted Metal, Carmageddon, games of that type. Mad Max, obviously, I just did the review on that. So the idea of the car combat intrigued me. Again, the Battle Royale style, I've never played one. It's very popular, so I didn't know if that was something that I would be converted to in the course of this or find that I liked. I'll give you an early spoiler alert. It didn't change my thoughts on that, and you'll see why. And some of that may be related to this being a beta, and I have to be very clear. This is a beta, so this is early going. There's things that I'm going to mention that I'm sure will be updated or changed. But the fundamental idea of a Battle Royale, if you've never played it, is that it's a bunch of people spit onto a map. That map constricts over time, and basically it's a last man standing situation. So they force everybody into a tighter and tighter circle or area, and that way it is easier to then whittle people down. So, as you're seeing here, it starts you off in a car. Now, this is the lobby where you're waiting for people to join. So I was just driving around. Here's the third-person car combat. You'll see once I get out of the car, it goes to first person. But at this point, I'm just kind of tooling around. Which I immediately managed to, you'll see shortly, hose my car because I was like, oh, let me see if I can jump this and go through the gate. Yeah, fence. The fence at the top. I was unsuccessful and managed to dump the car, as you're going to see in 2 seconds. Here's where I hit the gate. Gate can't be broken. So I figured, okay, well, then I'll see if I can turn the car because I was just trying to get a handle on it. And that's where the car got stuck. So I lose my car fairly quickly. Doesn't matter because this is kind of the pre-game moment, so it really doesn't make a big deal, but it is kind of hilarious to look at. As you see, you start off with a melee weapon. I think they're all pretty much the same this way, where you have almost nothing, no armor. There's the capability of arming yourself, customizing your weapon, customizing the car, adding armor, things to it that nature. There's a fuel component to this game. I don't know how big a deal it will be depending on how it's played. I never encountered any scenario where the fuel being low impacted the gameplay. Now, part of that's because I'm pretty terrible at this. So you'll see I'm going to die rather quickly. And that will reveal my big issue so far with this game. And I would imagine these games in general, depending on how they're configured. So as you see here, I'm wandering around. I do see another player. I think the player kills me. I don't exactly remember. I'm recording this after the fact because I'm going to be speeding up chunks of this video, which I don't generally do with my other gameplay videos, but in this one, I have to, because you will just go crazy watching nothing happen. Now, I did get on top of this car, which I thought was amusing, so I actually rode around the car, got in the car. Oh, and that's when we spawned. That's right. We didn't die. I got in the car, and nothing else happened. So this is where you pick a spawn point, and you're going to see that now everybody will get dumped into the same area, all in the vehicles, and we'll all start off, and some people will drive away. And I thought I would be clever this time, because I had played this beta before, and I thought I would run into one of the nearby buildings and try to arm myself. I figured, okay, most people just scatter, but if I stay here, I can find some armaments to get myself into better shape. So you're going to see that that's what I'm going to do here. Because I mentioned this was a beta, I should point out there were some really important updates made just in the day between the first beta, which was a lot rougher if you had seen it. I recorded it, and ultimately it was just such a rough video that I didn't even see the value in putting it out there. And I read that they were going to be making improvements, and they really did. A lot of the stuttering that I was encountering in the first day, which was mostly, it seems, due to motion blur, they removed the motion blur entirely. The game ran a lot smoother, which is not to say that you won't see some very beta stuff in here, but this is just in one day a vast improvement on what I was seeing from this game. So I'm glad I waited because, with betas, you do have to allow for some latitude, and I generally do. I don't really care so much about graphics to the point where, there's some rough textures in here. You're going to see them. There's placeholder textures. There's going to be spots where you're going to see that the architecture and the vehicles don't exactly touch the ground. Obviously, this is all very early build stuff. That's okay. I can let that go. That's actually not my problem as long as the gameplay is tight. But what is ultimately the biggest problem in this game is going to come up in a few minutes. So you see here, basically, this is one other thing that I sort of, you know, when a game is new and you don't know the map, it's a scramble just to try to figure out where people are, what's going on. That is some of the appeal of the game like this. Generally, that's why I like team-based games better. It lets you pair up with people. But that's okay. I understand this is the type of game. So I understood going in that this is how it was going to be. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of frantically moving around because I keep hearing gunshots. The audio in the game is a little wonky. So it didn't quite tell me where somebody was. So as soon as I heard noises, I simply assumed I was being shot at, which was sometimes the case, but not always. So most of this is me scrambling around, and I think I die pretty quickly in here. It won't be much longer, and then we'll move on to what right now is the biggest problem with this game in its current build, and one that I'm hoping that they rectify, which is that when you die, there's nothing to do. And you do not have, in the current build, the ability to jump to other players. And because this map appears to be fairly large, especially once the players get whittled down, but even now when this is a pretty packed, I mean, how many are we looking at? 26 people? I think the most I was in, there was something like 40 people. I'm pretty sure it was something, or 38, something around there. When you have that many people on a really large map, the problem becomes that once I die, I'm just staring at one person. I can't move between people. And so that one person you're going to see at some point, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't die there. I think I actually died in the same place in my first rounds of both days, which is this little collection of buildings. You know, and that's sort of probably designed that way. They probably have the resources in certain areas to allow people to bottleneck together and sort of introduce the franticness to the map. So I think there's somebody here. You can tell by the cars. You can tell which are the NPC cars and which are the real ones. And of course, I'm dead. Okay, so now I'm dead. So now we're going to switch to this person. And the problem here is, in the current build, there is nothing that's going to happen if this player doesn't do something. And that's, games like Friday the 13th, when you die, you can jump to other people and sort of warp around the map through different people's eyes, or in a God mode type of situation in most games. And you can at least observe what's going on. But in here, because I'm stuck, and I'll be curious, I actually will look forward to your comments on whether a lot of games have this problem, like how the games usually handle it. There is going to be a long swath of time where I'm not doing anything, where this person stays in this general area, which I understand because that's what I did. I mean, this is not me criticizing the playstyle of this person. I'm just saying that in this scenario, there is nothing for me to do, to the point where we are now going to have a huge stretch of time. I don't know, it's maybe 8 minutes or so, compressed down. We are going to see that just about nothing happens. So there was a little flurry of activity there. Or did it just happen, or did I just miss it? We're going to get a little flurry of activity, and now suddenly the video is going to speed up, and I'll come back in after there's the flurry of activity, because now we're just not going to do anything for a bit. Okay, so now something is happening again, which is where this person has encountered another player. So again, this is where warping around the map is beneficial, because you can see these little skirmishes. You can get a sense of what's happening. They're actually there's a movie-style set of suspense that comes when you're watching different people encounter each other, or you start to see where people are going to converge, and you kind of watch that happen in fluid real time. That's a really neat concept. That's what I like about Friday the 13th. Which does have its problems, and chiefly that if you die early, you're going to wait 18 or 15 minutes for the game to end. But because you can jump through people, you get that sense of watching kind of a horror movie, like what's going to happen. You don't have that in this game, except in small bits like this. So like I said, I think I sped up probably 6 to 8 minutes of almost nothing happening to get to this. Now, that's all fine in little spurts, but when you're sitting at... Oh, and this is just a horrifically good glitch. I was laughing at this because you can see what happened here is the model of the nude, or the body model, the nude body model has split out from the textured skin of like the armor and the clothing on this, which the person who was playing this didn't get that hung up on it. Maybe they'd seen it a bunch of times because I kept going, oh, look at this. I want to see what's going on here, because there's some interesting, I mean, just right here, you're getting a number of interesting graphics glitches. The gun's stuck in the air. There's a double gun glitch that will show up, I think, in this video where you have a phantom gun that is floating as if it's on a string right underneath you, or almost like if you played Metal Gear Solid 4, the thing where like Psycho Mantis when they control people with the invisible strings, that type of thing happening, or Praying Mantis. I don't remember. I think it's Praying Mantis in that one. Anyway, so this is a funny glitch to look at. So I was entertained by this, and then we're going to get to another part shortly where I basically am going to speed it up again because all that was happening was a lot of nothing. And if you don't allow for people to be able to jump around, this becomes really, really boring to sit through, because I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to be any good at this game. I'm not. There are people who are inherently better at these games and worse. I don't really care about that. It's not a big deal to me whether I, win or not, but you got to keep me entertained at least. And that so far has been the biggest problem with this beta for me so far. The concept is still interesting, but there's just these long stretches where nothing happens. And I would imagine this is not the case on all games. I think some games probably have a way to fix this, but here we go. We're going to get another stretch of where I'm going to speed it up because I'm just waiting for something to happen. So I'll be back. Okay, so now we're going to get to a point where there's going to be a bunch of stuff happening, which is where the game got really interesting for me as a spectator, because what you're going to find now is that this player gets caught in that whole level restriction thing that defines a battle royale game, or whatever. I don't know if that's the term for it, but I think it is. I've seen it around. Where now the radioactive storm has caught up to the player and the health bar starts getting depleted because you're stuck. This is basically the game corralling you into this central point where everybody is going to start fighting, and you're going to see that that's exactly what's going to happen. This is an interesting aspect of these types of games. I understand why it's there. I think it's actually sort of a neat idea because it does stop just the idea of people being able to camp forever, which is a problem with any type of deathmatch style game, is people who just sit in the corner and wait for you to run in front of them and shoot you. That, of course, incites its own type of boredom. So this idea of constricting the map artificially to make people have to fight each other is a really neat idea. I understand why these games are popular from that aspect, because one of the things that, again, I've run into with like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress or Overwatch generally avoids it mostly through level design, but still it happens. With somebody who's playing Widowmaker and finds a really good perch, you just have certain areas that you have to stay out of or hope somebody else manages to get that person. This, with the map, the Battle Royale style, forces everybody into tight quarters and they have to fight each other. So I understand the appeal of it. It's just not it's not that appealing to me because I'm fine with kind of short burst deathmatch type of stuff. So overall with the beta, because this is going to be winding down as you watch it here, I didn't have any major problems with the game itself. I didn't run into any crashing. Like I said, the graphics are rough, but I would expect that. I still think the concept has merit. I didn't get to really play with it much as far as being able to ram people with the cars. I didn't see a lot of that happening. I don't know if that's just because they haven't gotten that far in implementing those systems, because I did not encounter with any of the playthroughs I did, and I think I played 7 matches total. There was no point where I saw people really trying to hit each other with cars. I tried it a couple of times, but the cars hitting each other, I mean, they're all the exact same car until you start customizing them, so there's sort of that, so it's tough to tell what you're looking at to some degree. It's very muddy. Again, that's beta stuff. They can fix that. But there was not, I mean, there's no intro or tutorial or tips of any kind. So it's tough for me to tell whether they're really stressing the car combat as a battle mechanic or if it's just kind of a convenient way to zip around the map and occasionally take somebody out. That's tougher for me to tell right now. Again, graphics are rough, but they have vastly fixed the frame rate problems and the stuttering problems that I encountered the first day. As far as the way the actual shooting and everything handles, it feels fine. The customizable guns are good. Again, it's as far as the gameplay itself, I didn't run into anything that I thought, oh, this is a really bad sign. I just also didn't see much that would get me interested in this style of gameplay. I was really hoping that the cars would somehow introduce a more interesting variation into this, because, like I said, Battle Royale on itself is not terribly interesting to me. That's just me. Other people may say this and say, oh, this is going to be a really wild way of doing this. And I hope it is. I would like to see a game be able to introduce a new type of play element to something and have it succeed. Because I do think that the car aspect could differentiate this game. But right now, the car element feels very secondary. Again, that may change as the game develops. They may have new systems that come into place. The cars may become more individualized. There may be certain benefits, and there probably are now, but because this is just a beta where nobody really knows what's going on, because I'm assuming I didn't see any instructions. So I don't know even what some of these mods do, and you don't have a lot of time to mess around with them because you're trying to work out the map and where you're going and everything else. So there's no real guide to this yet. It's a very, very Wild West, as you can see, setup. And so in that, people are going to fall back to the mechanics and the play styles that they are used to. So ultimately, I'm sure that's why I didn't see much of the car combat, is because people were using the methods that they know work, which is running around, taking cover, shooting at people, and arming themselves to the teeth. And that is how you have to play it right now. So there's for a beta this early, because I believe this is their first public beta of any kind, it is rough around the edges, but it is not as bad as some betas that I've played. I've played some rough betas before. This one could still differentiate itself. There's the doubling of the gun, by the way. If that car element is dialed up, if they can make that into something unique, then I think this game has a lot of potential. I love the look and the setting. I mean, the Mad Max setting is great. So all of that stuff feels right. The radioactive storm, the rough look of the guns, where they're kind of, some pieces are new, some pieces are patched together. There's very little of any type of character customization, but of course that's because it's a beta. And like I said, there's some rough textures, obviously, and the graphics are not overwhelmingly impressive yet. But it's really going to come down to the gameplay. That's what these games ultimately, because I don't think PUBG is a particularly good-looking game. I've often read that it's the gameplay that overcomes the visual style of it. And I think with this game, to be successful, it's going to have to be that car element. That's going to have to get really dialed in and dialed up. It's going to have to be far more present than I'm seeing so far. Because this, what you've seen in this video so far, I don't know if there's anything special about this compared to other Battle Royale games. So if this game is going to succeed, if it's going to excel, I think it's going to be in that new gameplay type. But I would be curious, for those who actually play these types of games, is anything that you've seen here that drastically different from what you're used to? And secondarily, is there stuff here that would interest you? Would the car element be enough? Because I didn't see anything in the first betas that I played, but again, I'm reserving judgment, that would get me to want to play this game past the beta point, like buy it. But of course, I'm saying I'm not a Battle Royale person. So for those who like these games, what are your impressions from what you've just seen here? Because this was, this is typical of every gameplay, every match that I played was similar to this. So I would be curious what those who like these games, did you see stuff here that looked like it had a lot of promise, or was there nothing special here that would get you to play? Let me know later.